The next morning, the world was no longer the same. Emily Carter woke up not to the smell of coffee or the warmth of Max's fur, but to the sterile chill of a police interrogation room. The lights were too bright, the walls too white, the air too thin. She sat motionless, her wrists marked where the handcuffs had been, her mind still trying to catch up to the horror that had unfolded. Outside that room, the world had already decided her fate. News anchors dissected her life piece by piece. The quiet assistant, the woman no one really knew, the possible motive no one could yet prove. Her photo flashed across every screen, her name trended for all the wrong reasons. The internet was merciless. Strangers who'd never met her built entire stories from fragments of gossip. They called her cold, calculated, dangerous. Inside, she was just empty. Detective Alan Reeves entered the room with the slow confidence of a man who thought he already knew the truth. His voice was calm, almost too calm, when he asked her to recount the morning again, every detail, every movement. Emily tried. She spoke of the office, the spilled coffee, the silence. But each word seemed to tighten the invisible ropes around her. Her fingerprints, her proximity, her history with the victim. Each fact was a blade, slicing away at her defense. Reeves leaned forward, his gaze sharp. You worked for him for 6 years, Miss Carter. You knew his schedule, his secrets, his habits. You expect me to believe you had no idea what was going on in that office? Emily's voice cracked when she answered. He was my boss, not my friend. But that wasn't entirely true. Victor Hale had once trusted her more than anyone. There were late nights spent organizing his files, private meetings where he'd confide in her, brief moments of vulnerability beneath his cold exterior. She remembered him pacing by the window, muttering about a partner betraying him, about documents that couldn't be found. But none of it made sense, not then and not now. Still, the more she spoke, the deeper the hole grew. When they finally let her go, not free, but on house arrest pending trial, she walked out into a world that no longer welcomed her. Reporters crowded her car, shouting questions she couldn't bear to hear. Cameras flashed in her face like bullets of light. She didn't answer a single one. By the time she got home, the neighborhood had turned into a ghost town. Curtains twitched as she passed. Doors closed quietly behind her. Once she stepped inside, she pressed her back against the door and finally let herself breathe. Then she heard it, the sound that made her heart crack open. A soft, desperate whine. Max bounded toward her, tail wagging weakly, whining again as if asking where she'd been, why she smelled like fear and sadness. She knelt and buried her face in his fur. For the first time since it all began, she cried. Not the quiet tears of shock, but the kind that come from deep inside, the kind that taste like despair. For hours, she sat there on the floor, holding on to the only being that hadn't turned against her. Max never moved. His head rested against her chest, his eyes never leaving hers. Days turned into nights. The world outside kept spinning, the investigation, the headlines, the whispers, but inside that small bungalow, time seemed to stop. Emily tried to convince herself that the truth would come out, that the police would find whoever did this. But doubt crept in like a shadow that refused to leave. Then, strange things began to happen. Max, usually calm, started to act differently. He'd stand by the front door at odd hours, barking at nothing. Sometimes he'd scratch at the back gate, whining as if he'd heard someone outside. Once, in the middle of the night, Emily woke to find him pacing the living room, nose pressed against the window, growling low under his breath. At first, she thought it was stress. Dogs could sense tension after all. But then she noticed something else. Max seemed drawn to the briefcase she'd brought home from work, the one that used to sit beside Victor's desk. He'd sniff it, paw at it, bark softly whenever she tried to move it. One evening, unable to bear the silence, she opened it. Inside were the usual office files. Invoices, meeting notes, contracts. But tucked between the papers was something she'd never seen before. A small flash drive, unlabeled, hidden beneath a folded letterhead from Hale Industries. Her heart stopped. Victor's voice echoed in her memory, that night 2 weeks ago, when he'd looked over his shoulder and whispered, "If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone at the company." At the time, she thought he was joking. Now she wasn't so sure. She looked down at Max, who was staring back at her, tail still, eyes sharp, as if urging her to understand. The silence between them felt electric, alive. Emily realized something in that moment. Maybe she wasn't alone in this after all. Because somehow, some way, her dog knew something she didn't. And whatever was on that flash drive might just be the key to proving her innocence.